Happy New Year. This is 2022, and we have our first episode for the year. We are going to sit down with an artist. He is well versed in many different media types. I would say that his work is really thought or well thought out. There's a lot of emotion in some of his pieces. I'm not going to really describe it too much because artists for those who interpret it themselves. So what I will do is I'll let him into the call. He can explain sort of what his background is, where his inspiration comes from, and a little bit about himself, and some of his insight will be provided for his process. I'm kind of really excited for this guest. I've waited a long time to get in touch with him, and he's just busy. I'm busy. We're all busy, but we finally got our paths to cross, and we're at a point where we can sit down and just kind of discuss. So, without pause, here's one of my friends, Rel. Rel,
What's going on?
how's it going, man?
Pretty good, sir. What's good?
Man, everything's good. How you feeling?
For that, I'm feeling excellent.
All right. Thanks for joining us today. It's a beautiful Saturday. I'm sure you've enjoyed most of your day probably working on your house. But we'll get into the questions here, and we'll just start with essentially, what is your occupation at this time?
I'll start it off a little backwards because my strengths come in the form of visual storytelling, and that has expressed itself through design, like product design, through branding, whether it's logos, websites, etc., and through illustrations for some of the major film studios, for up and coming authors, and then recently we're developing like a comic book and other things.
Oh, wow.
And then with my design company that I run with my wife, we got into experiential marketing and design. So because of the strength of visual storytelling, the position or the job that I hold now, I've coined it brand architect. Okay. So I'm looking at your brand story and how we can build a foundation and structure and experience and you name it. So everything that goes into telling the story of the property, the person, the company. So wow. long answer long, brand architect.
Brand architect. I like the way that sounds.
Yeah, it sounds dope. I haven't seen anyone use it. So.
I would say that you'd put on your business cards, but I don't think people really have business cards these days.
I haven't printed a business card in at least 5 years, probably longer.
Oh my gosh, man.
The way the tools work now is like it's easier to just share my contact. What I've done, little hack for all you guys out there and gals, create your contact with everything: your name, business, email, Insta, TikTok, YouTube, everything. Dope picture that you like, and then put it as one of your favorites. Put it at the top, and when you got to share it, you just go to your favorites, share your contact, boom.
Oh, wow.
That's faster than like reaching for a business card sometimes.
No, yeah. I didn't think about that. I know the other day I saw something where you could just have this one digital card.
And and then whoop, they just touch it on the back of the phone.
Right.
Sick little metal card that looks like a Visa or something.
Save me from having to do those 1,600 runs,
Yeah, exactly. You just boop, 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 boop.
That's awesome, man. So what would be, and I think I know the answer to this one, and I always tell people this, but like I just get so excited. What would be the one thing that you could do that you have the most passion for, that you could do paid or unpaid? Like you just breathe it and
just breathe it.
Yeah.
I call that when we would do what we used to call like the passion finder. It's like, what would I rather be doing? In any situation, what would I rather be doing? Most of the time, the simple answer is drawing. Like I could just, I'm always doodling. So drawing, painting, And then more recently, I've just really gotten into murals. Like there's something about just painting something obscenely huge, that's like that just I could do that. I call it like what are the things that fuel you that don't drain from you, right? So
Right.
for me, it'll be like for me when I'm painting, I'm tapping into the source and I don't need to eat, I don't need to sleep, and I'll be painting and then next thing I know, the sun's coming up. I'm like, oh
Oh,
shoot,
wow.
you know, let me catch a few Z's before it gets too hectic. So
Wow.
painting, drawing, building sometimes depending, but painting and drawing seem to be ubiquitous no matter what. And it could be digital, it could be with aerosols, it could be with a brush, it could be with a pencil, charcoal. I'm traditionally trained, so I can jump into all those, to all of those.
So what I was going to point out, because a lot of people may not know, is that I mean you've worked in all types of medium, um, and with different media. I know that when we were going to church together, you did a lot of the digital stuff for the church.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I know that like you said, you've worked with aerosols. You work for paints.
Yep.
You're working on your house.
Yeah.
um, you you've used so many. I mean, I guess the only thing that I have to ask: have you ever worked with sculptures? Like, have you done any type of
Yeah.
modeling?
Yeah. We actually have this like huge, 12-foot by almost 8 foot, like metal sculpture that my boy Cooper Reynolds like helped us build. And, I was welding it with him. And
Wow.
prior, when, we were at different communities, we most of like my fabrication stuff would be considered sculptures. And, I had to really thank this skips around, but I have to really thank my dad because since I was young, he was a carpenter
Mm.
and he came from the Dominican Republic. He never got into learning English, and it's a shame because he was so proficient at what he did that he could easily been like a licensed contractor and had a team if he wanted to, but he never did. But either way, he would always we were young take us with him to help him out, and and then when we in Miami, when we had built a huge addition, and all the summers, we'd be building the addition with him. And it was funny when we finally, bought the house that we're been renovating, when we were looking for contractors to help us do some things, like everyone kept flaking, or they'd give us a price and then never show up, or they'd give us a price that was like astronomical.
Yeah.
And and it got to a point that I told Oti, that's my wife, I told her, I probably forgot more than I think I did. And I'm sure as soon as I started, everything's gonna come back. And I kid you not, when we started mudding,
Yeah.
you mud all the time, so the sound. As
Yeah.
soon as I did that first clink of the two metal pieces, it all came back. Muscle memory kicked in. It was like everything came out. It was just like, ching, 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 and it was just like,
Wow.
what's going on? I was just, autopilot. I was like, dude, there's so much of that before I was even 14 that, it's like, you just forget about it
Yeah, yeah,
and your
yeah.
body remembers.
That's just crazy. That's wild how that happens. So, I mean,
Mhm.
especially, yeah, like, and I'm glad you were honest with your wife. It's just like, hey, look, I can't promise you anything, but
Yeah, at this point, it's like,
yeah.
because we were like running against the clock, because we have 6 kids now. She was pregnant at the time. We had 5 kids, and we had left 3 of them with my mom in Florida, and we brought the big girls. And I was like, hey, we don't have forever. It's like we got until the summer ends to get this place livable. Because in
Right.
pictures, it looks great, but when you walk in, it was like dog hair everywhere,
Oh, yeah.
no, everything like clean up. There's wallpaper everywhere, layers. It was just a dust mess. It was like for a month and a half, it was just dust and taking stuff out and whatever. I remember like she was still sleeping at her mom's house. And I was like, nah, man, I bought this house. I'm gonna sleep here, cold, no heater, like the pilot light wasn't on. It was like it's cold. I was just sleeping on the sofa. It doesn't matter.
Oh, man.
I lived and breathed it, and uh and I'm like, because of when you as a professional and when you really like push to have integrity and quality as your main deliverable to be able to get whatever, like even if I don't know the right way to do it, I'm still going to do it well,
Oh, yeah.
or even if I don't know how to do it at all, like my best guess just from building and my experience in building and YouTube now, like,
YouTube University.
yeah, YouTube University, it's like, yo, I got a diploma in YouTube University.
I feel you. When you were talking about the dust and all that, I start to shudder because, it was like, the last bit of dust is probably still falling behind me, as you can kind of see the blurred out. I haven't finished my office, but we had floors up, like, right before we moved in. I'm like, I got to get all the dust stuff done first. I have to get it done before the family moves in. So I ripped up the floor, and I ran into the same issue where people were flaking or the prices were high. And then I just got
especially
to a point where
with COVID and the supply prices went crazy. I've been building for the last, 5-6 years, for events. So I got used to a certain price point. And when, I remember before we closed on the house, it needed a few little repairs before they would sanction it to be sold or whatever. And I remember, there were family members like, oh, they should cover that, this, that, and the other. And I remember just like so clearly telling them, I was like, look, man, God did all this work to get us here. And at the very last moment, all he's asking me to do is put the period on the sentence. It's like the thing that I've been doing, which is build a little step and paint a few walls so that there's not like flaking paint and it's not a hazard. That's all I got to do. No, I'm going to do it. Let's just do it, get it done. And we did. And, we're able to like move forward. But yeah, man, the dust is a real thing,
Oh man, how many filters have I changed and how much have I wasted on the AC guy coming out and telling me, are you changing your filters? Like, I'm changing them, man. I'm changing them. He's like, I got to flush the system. All right. I'm like, all right, fine. But that's behind us, to a certain degree.
Literally.
Yeah, exactly. Literally. Yeah, exactly. So you talked about your father being a carpenter. Your mom, what career did she have, or what interest did she have?
She's always been in school, and she does like case management, especially for kids in high risk situations. And so that's what she did most of, my teenage years. And before that, she was doing nursing stuff and like case management for elderly. So she's always been in the caregiving kind of space.
Okay.
She has a heart of gold. Like, yeah, she's
So that's
awesome
where you get
that way.
yours from.
Yeah, but mine is packaged and a little bit more of an intimidating package. She's like 4'5" and just all hugs and smiles.
Oh. So do you feel that, I know your father has certain influence on you, but do you feel your mom had an influence on you in terms of the work?
Oh,
that you do in
huge,
art?
because she was always like heavy in scholastics. This is the one thing that both my parents really instilled in me, and I got to see it, expressed differently and merge them, is just a lot of hard work. My mom would do school in the daytime, and then she worked nights for like the majority of my early years. And then I saw her, with the case management, it's like driving everywhere, then writing all night. And, that's stuck since high school. I'm a night owl, maybe not naturally through my circadian rhythm or anything, but just from examples, like that's just what I do. And even now, like we prioritize flexibility over security, if that makes sense. So I would rather be flexible and be there for the kids and for my wife and for whatever we need to do. And I tell them, it's like, hey, the daytime is yours most of the time, like obviously there's
Right.
times when I got to work in the daytime, and the nighttime is mine, so many times, it's like don't really get started working until 6 p.m. So sometimes that means that, I'm in bed at 3, 4, 5, and then, we do it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So work
I
ethic
know
is
that.
definitely like something I got from both of them. And from my dad, learn how to work with my hands. From my mom, learn how to work with my brain. So I'm super grateful for the example that they've given.
So when you were a child, where did you see yourself, in the future? Like, did you find that you would be, or were kind of associating yourself with doing art as as your main thing, or did you want to be an astronaut? I mean,
Well, I mean, like it all comes full circle and it's pretty funny. But the first things I would always, draw comic books and trace comic books. That was our YouTube, right? It's like just tracing that comic book, that comic book by the end of the, not even month, by the end of the week, because nothing lasts that long when you're a kid. By the
right.
end of the week, that thing was tattered because, it's like I traced it so many times. I like poked holes into the paper. But because of like working with my dad, I immediately thought, hey, I'm going to use my drawing and his construction, and I'm going to be an architect, right? And that was
There
the
you go.
trajectory. That was the trajectory. It was like I was going to be an architect. I went to the design and architecture senior high in Miami because I was going to be an architect. And then it's funny because I remember, and in that school for the first year they did this thing called the wheel, where you went through the different um, design disciplines to see where you would land for like the remainder of your time there. It's structured very much how colleges are. So we had architecture, graphics, industrial design, and fashion.
Hmm.
So going through the wheel, what's funny is like I didn't really like my architect professors that much. And I was like, I don't want to be like these guys. If this is
Oh
what it means to
wow.
be an architect, like, I don't know if that's really what I want to do, Like, I saw that right away. But I really loved industrial design because you design everything, from transportation to like toothbrushes to you name it. Uh, so I really love that. And with the school, we always had to do, the AP art curriculum. So we did a lot of fine art and, and industrial design for me and, and all of our other scholastic things. So through that, I chose industrial design as my applied art, because if I'm going to do college and everything else, I'm going to do something that I can get a real job.
A real job. I love that.
Right.
I wish as a kid, like we were exposed to like more careers, and that's kind of really why I like doing this, is because I mean, you could say, oh, well, I want to be an artist, or I want to be a photographer, I want to be XYZ. And the reason why I really want you on this show, or this episode, is that I've been interviewing friends that do things that are within music or within, photography or within art, but they're kind of specific in general at the same time. So, for example, I did an interview with Matt from our church, and he works for Disney, and he does
Rachel
photography.
or
Yes, yes.
yeah.
So he he works for Disney, and the type of photography he's doing right now is archival. Now, I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
that's all he does, because he does commercial work too on the side,
Yep.
but little kids don't know what archival photography is, or what I mean,
Yeah.
like they don't know the difference between taking a picture of landscape versus taking a picture of people. So I would just love to be in a place, and I'm hoping, like I said, this is God led, that I will be able
Yeah.
to showcase some of my friends and show children and those that are younger, that there are different paths to take, and it's not limited to just one thing. So,
Hmm.
with your art, and that's why I think it's just wonderful that people will understand that, any type of media that you choose to go and pursue can lead to, lots of different careers and
Yeah.
opportunities. I won't say careers. I think I've used career
Opportunity. Yeah.
too. Yeah, opportunities is really what I want to focus on,
Hmm.
because I think we're at an age now where career is something that is kind of the past. I think it's
Yeah.
more of how do you use your talents and gifts in these opportunities. So
Hmm.
I want to rephrase that, but I'm
Yeah.
going to ask one question, then we'll get to the bonus. What do you believe are your strengths and your weaknesses? And take your time with that.
Yeah. I mean, so let me let's go back a little bit because I want to expand on some of the things that you were bringing up with my career path. Let's call it that for now. What's interesting, or the thing that I picked up along the way and learned uh, through school was process, right? And just recently, I've been going in the last few years of just seeing like all the different things that I've touched and the different mediums that I've worked with, and really boiling down what my process is. And what I found is that if you can abstractly boil down your process, then it doesn't matter what your tool is. So I'll say that again. If you can boil down your process, it doesn't matter what your tool is. And abstractly meaning that I'm not saying, first you draw outlines and then it's like I'm saying, uh, hey, get a general idea, you know, zoom into the details, make the details the main thing, and then, you know, weave the story in that. So that's not necessarily, that's an example of what I mean by abstract. So if you are always doing your process, doesn't matter if it's, working with mud and paint for the house, if it's, fabricating, a sculpture, if it's designing, if it's, your process is your process. And what happens is that you become an expert at your proprietary process. And now any new medium, any new tools that come in are part of the process, become part of you can put into that process and achieve amazing results really quickly. So it seems like there's a low learning curve, or that you're really brilliant, but it's not that you're brilliant at whatever that thing is that you're brilliant at your process.
Right.
And I've taken that and like to try to understand, for example, like the crypto space and NFT space. So I've been taking it through that process, and hopefully this year you'll get to see some of the things we've been cooking up.
Good.
And done that with every field. So that's why I'm like medium agnostic. Like it doesn't matter what it is. And one of the things is I got, I could, you would get it, but I got this like crazy God dream, and it was, to create content for every verse in the Bible. And when that first started off, I took that literal. I'm like, drawing specifically, from the word, and doing this like really it's an esoteric documentation. Like if you don't know what Christianity is, or Judaism, or like Hebrew culture is, like this is going to go over your head. But that's how I interpret it. And just as I've been extrapolating this whole thing on process, I just realized, it's going to be very difficult for me to accomplish this, by myself. So obviously this has to be a team. And the other one, it's going to be very difficult if in accomplishing this, it's its own thing and its own vertical. And, I have to like set time aside for just that. And I can't mix it in, if that makes sense. So instead, what I realize is for that dream, or that, that goal to be achieved, that has to be the foundation of how I exude everything. So if I'm working on a brand, hey, what's your ethos? Oh, it's, um, whatever, throw something out. Generosity, that's something I'm working on, right? Then, okay, cool. What are all the things, about generosity? And then put that into the branding, into the colors, into the everything. Hey, we're working on a comic book. It's like, what's this part of the story? Okay, cool. I'm going to reference, David. I'm going to reference Samson. I'm going to reference, all these other things. So it becomes a through line to everything I do, so that everything is, now, an example of a new parable, if you will, of one of those stories. And from that, is where like now I'm really finding a stride and being able to communicate, a lot of truth in, packaged in a relevant way that's not esoteric.
Right.
That, you don't need to know the verse to understand that we're talking about power, that we're talking about generosity, that we're talking about forgiveness, etc.
That's cool.
So now going to the weaknesses, strengths, and it's boiled into the same thing, right? So for me, my strength is that I can see the big picture, and it works in a way that like I can derive the answer without having to go through the steps. So it's really frustrating when I have to try to explain it because I can't,
Right.
like it's only in hindsight that I can explain it. Oh, see how we did this, like
right.
this, da, 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 So I can't explain the answer. And for the few people that are still like working with me and can totally deal with that aspect of my strength, just know it's like, look, it's gonna be that we're gonna deviate and we're gonna come full circle right back to that. So let's just go with that.
Right.
Trust, and that's what trust is.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Because of my strength, it requires a lot of trust, because most people will fight me tooth and nail through the whole thing. And then they have the meeting and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
So yeah, so that would be the thing, is like, can see the big vision and see the the destination, but because I have this aerial view, which is kind of my name, this aerial view, and I see the destination, I know where we have to go. I can't explain to you the path inside the forest because, like, I just know it's that way. I can give you the GPS coordinates, but we might have to fail a few times navigating like the actual terrain of the pedestrian path.
Man, yeah, I can relate to that. I'm not going to say wholeheartedly, but I can follow you. And I think there are those moments when I have that same type of, I would say for me, it's a frustration where I might have the idea and everything's clear and the vision straight, but to someone who I'm explaining it to, or maybe just kind of give them the oversight or overview, trying to break it down, it's more of a challenge. But I totally understand. Well,
like another way that's expresses itself in my life is that in trying to communicate it backwards, I'll overcomplicate things that should be simple too.
Right.
It's like, and me trying to answer all those questions for other people, I overcomplicate it. And so one of the things that I've, a hack that I've created to thwart that overcomplication is that instead of doing goal-oriented methodology and strategy and I do discipline-oriented path, because I'm like, look, I know that's the goal. To achieve that goal, if I just do this every day for 45 minutes, I'll get there. I don't put a timeline, to motivate myself in that way, because what I found is that when you miss the timeline, now you have shame,
Yeah.
You have that dark voice that starts saying you're not worth it, you're not
Right.
competent, you're blah, blah, you don't have integrity. So instead of like making those promises, is like, hey, I'm committed to doing this daily to achieve that goal. And then once the path gets clear and other people get on board, you can start making more concrete decisions as to like timelines and budgets and everything else. So for me, I go like a discipline-based approach versus a goal-oriented approach. And for me, that's helped me a lot, to just not be frustrated, not overcomplicate things. I just need another one step for today. The one step for today, it's like, if I make that decision once and I'm disciplined in executing that decision over and over, I'm like, hey, I just have to draw for 45 minutes every day, and this, like with understanding crypto, NFTs, everything, hey, I just have to learn some stuff, figure out some stuff every day, etc. And then what ends up happening is like now I just break up my day into these 45-minute segments of things I have to do every day. And it's really easy now to say no to stuff because I'm like, I'm already doing 10 things every day. There's not much more room to do more things in a healthy way, So it's like, how can we do, it's like, how can, gather more of those yeses together so that I'm doing them all together. It's like, hey, if I'm going to be doing, crypto stuff, I can do that kind of strategy. It's the same strategy for 3 different people. That makes sense, et cetera. It's like, if I'm going to be creating some neural concepts, it's like, oh, let me just make a massive neural concept that I can then break down into 5 or 6 pieces that I can now take elements of, how to create tools to help me semi-automate processes to get inspiration and create an inspiration continuum, so that there's just a loop that everything is inspiring the next thing and inspiring the next thing and inspiring the next thing. As long as I keep that inspiration continuum going, I'm never out of ideas.
That's helpful. I think I'm gonna have to practice some of that to see how it works for me. I know it's worked for you, but I don't want to hold you too long. And I do have another question for you, and that's the bonus question.
Oh,
And
yes.
to actually get the bonus question asked, I have a guest who's going to join us and ask that question. So this may be a random question, and it might just be on point. We'll find
Okay.
out in a second. So we're going to let into this call Storyteller. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
What's going on,
Doing
Tori?
well.
Hi.
So this is my friend Rel. He's an artist, great artist at that. And I think you have a question for us.
Yes. I wanted to know, what process do you look forward to when creating your art?
All right. So for me, the process starts with the story, because so many times people start off with the container, if you will, like the medium or what the final product is going to be, and that's a great way to create parameters. For me, I start off with the story because through the story or the ethos or the main emotive vehicle, like whatever that the main through line is, through finding that out first, all your other decisions are pointed towards that and will never contradict it.
Okay.
So if you start painting something and your favorite color is blue, like the song, and then all of a sudden at the end you're like, oh, this is about passion. Well, like you just wasted a ton of time, because blue is not passion. It's it's calm, and you can have blue, but you're gonna have to throw some red or pink or violet to offset it. So story first is the main thing, and then that kind of answers a lot of questions.
Okay.
I can expand on that more, but it can get a little like a little esoteric,
Yeah.
Because like everybody's process can be very different, and depending on, we were just talking about like everyone can create their own process that they can excel at. So your process can be totally different than mine. But if you start with story, or what the main emotional tool, narrative is going to be, that's going to make a lot of decisions that will point everything towards it.
Okay. Cool.
Dope.
Cool. Thank you for that question, Tori.
You're welcome.
You can hang out till we conclude, or you can log out, and we'll catch you another time.
Okay. I'll probably catch you guys another time.
Okay.
All right, Tori.
Thanks again.
All right. It was nice meeting you.
All right, pleasure.
All right.
All right.
That's fine.
So yeah,
that
we're
was a
at
super surprise.
Well, I like to keep it fresh if possible. And it's also cool to have, well, she's an aspiring artist. Actually, she's an artist too. But starting off, and just to have someone ask those questions that they need to kind of develop as an artist or creative. It's just, that's what I'm trying to do. So
Super dope.
thank you for taking the time to answer the question and all the questions that I've asked you today.
For sure.
In closing, I know that you've given us a lot of nuggets. Is there anything that you feel that you have not had the opportunity to express that you want to kind of leave us as a parting word? And if not, that's fine too.
No, I don't know. I don't know if I do. I feel like we went through a lot of nuggets. I would, just summarize it. If we can start off with the message. So this is a good nugget that can help a lot of people out. If we can start off with a message, and then from the message, start creating parameters, because when you create parameters, now your mind has something that it wants to break out of. And that's where you start getting like, with those limitations, you're going to create like really specific solutions to yield, more unique results. And then from there, then get into flow, right? So your message, your parameters, and your flow. And it's not that like once you made parameters, you're stuck, or once you pick the message, you're stuck. If something changes, at least you know what the variable was. It's like, hey, you know what? We did a parameter of a color or shape, and it's not working. Let's change the parameters. Or hey, we started with this one story about hatred, and we realized it's really more about redemption. So let's change that, and then in turn that changes everything. So it's not that you're locked into those things. At the end of the day, you're your own creative force connected to you're your own creative force, and you can change the rules, but have them for yourself so that you can be able to have a compelling piece of art at the end of the day.
That's great, man. And I'm glad that you were able to close this with that. I just want to thank you. Thanks for taking the time. I mean, 6 kids and the responsibilities you have. Beyond that, it's just for you to sit down with me for this amount of time. I'm just grateful, and I'm sure that there are a lot of others that will be as well. So I want to encourage you. You're doing a great work. Keep it up. I want to hear more from you. I know that you kind of lightly touched crypto and the NFTs. That's something that's starting to get hot, and I believe it warrants a separate conversation. So hopefully, you'll be able to get a little bit more insight and bring it back to us and share what you've learned.
Yeah, man, that'd be dope.
Yeah. So cool.
Right.
Man.
So thank you for the time and for like blessing me with this opportunity as well. And follow you guys on Instagram, and like seeing what you guys are going through with the house is like relieves a lot of pressure from us. It's like, yeah, all right, cool. It's not just us. We're not crazy,
Well,
But
I personally have not posted as much as my wife has, but I plan
me
on at the end of
too.
the process
I'm
just doing the
horrible.
side by sides.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
horrible about it. I'm horrible
I'm
about it. You know,
just you're doing it.
I'm gonna do something more there. You know, it's like I'll do something for a year where I'll post a lot because people keep asking me to. And I'm like, all right, I'll do something for a year, just like a short window. I'm just not
Mhm.
that person. I don't like to share that much.
I'm just like that. I think that's why we relate to
I'll
each
share
other so
personally, you
well.
know, it's like
Yeah.
offline, I'll share all the
Oh yeah,
time.
and I'll shoot you some photos all day. But
Yeah.
posting, it's just like it's got to be like a book or something like perfect. Um, so the last thing, Instagram. I know that you have several accounts, one for the family business and one for your personal. So I can
Yeah.
get this right. Can you just let us know which one that is?
Well, Black Brain LA is the one I use for my art murals and those kinds of things. And then Vergez Inc. is the business one.
Okay.
Um,
And do you have a website still, or do you still just use, or basically use your
I think it's
Instagram?
under development right now. Might be down, but if you know, to be honest, I don't know. I'm sorry, man. I'm horrible.
That's fine. I'll contact your assistant and find out the information I need. All right. Well, thank you. I'll let you know. All right, man. Have a good evening. We'll talk
Peace, bro.
soon. All right,
Take
man.
care.